money's on the screen tonight. Secrets out in plain sight. Luxury homes at half the price.
So, Mr. Murdoch, welcome. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
So, my first question is, what your thoughts about Huntington Beach? How long you've been here? Maybe talk a little bit about yourself.
Sure, absolutely. This is my 29th year. Actually, I started here at Schroeder as a teacher 29 years ago, and the neighborhood is fantastic. I really, really enjoy the community and the families that I've gotten to know. In fact, many of the students we have today are children of students that I had when I was teaching fourth grade. I'm on my second generation. Hopefully I'll be retired before the third generation comes along, but it's interesting to be able to reconnect with families who I've known for a long
So,
time.
what inspired you? Was it your goal to become a principal, or you eventually came to it?
So when I first started teaching, I was really more looking just for a job. And I had gone to school to become a teacher, and this was one of the districts that was hiring in 1996 during a period of time that we called 20 to 1, which is when the state of California was giving extra money to the districts to make the class sizes smaller. And so they had to hire a bunch of teachers. And so I was part of that boom that came in at that time. As far as becoming a principal, when I first started, it really wasn't on my radar. It was not something I was interested in. But the principal here at Schroeder, her name was Linda Baxter, suggested that I go to school and get my degree in administration so that I could possibly go forward in the role of principal later if I wanted to. And that was back in the year 2000. And I didn't end up using that degree until 2011 is when I moved to become an administrator. For me, the motivation was I never wanted a student to feel the way I did in school, which was going to a school that didn't fit me. I never felt comfortable in a regular school environment, and I really struggled academically from 7th grade through 12th grade because of it. It was a challenge graduating from high school. My goal, in addition to helping our students academically, is to make sure that they feel comfortable here and happy here, because I feel like if they want to be here, we've really won the battle.
You said it was challenging for you back in the day. Could you share more? What exactly was the challenging?
Absolutely. So when I was little and going through kindergarten through 6th grade in elementary, most of the work was easy for me. And so I didn't develop strong study habits. And so when I got to a point in middle school in 7th grade, when studying and working hard became a priority, I did not have the skill set to be able to do that, to be successful. And so I fell behind. I didn't do my homework. My grades suffered dramatically. And I was going to the school where my mother was a teacher. And it was very embarrassing for her because her son was doing very poorly in the school that she was teaching at. My experience only got worse. Once I got to high school, I have to tell you, when I got to chemistry class, the math was well farther than I was ready to go. And I had to transfer out of the chemistry class or I would have failed. And so it wasn't until I got to college that I went back and took all of the math and chemistry, science type classes to get through the programs to become a teacher.
So there's like a big shift between the middle school and high school's programs. When you in the middle school, it's not that tough, but in the high school, you need to focus more. That's pretty much what's.
Well, yeah, and I think for me, the big shift was actually going from the elementary school to the middle school.
Right.
And that's when I really started to begin to struggle because it no longer was it easy, and I couldn't just get by on what I already knew.
Another question is, what is, for you personally, what is the difference between successful and unsuccessful?
Well, I think success at a school site is defined in a number of different categories. I think that for a lot of folks, they would say that academics is their number one priority and they want their students to be at the top of the class. And I think that is certainly a big measure of how a school does. But I also think that their discipline record, how their students behave at the school, is important, because you want to have your kids at a school where you believe the kids are being exposed to positive environment, right? For me, I measure their success both academically but also behaviorally. And then I even have a third piece, and that is, how do the families feel? Do they feel like they're part of the school system? Do the parents want to come and be a part of the activities that we put on? And I think that if you take those three things and kind of add them together, you get a really good mix. Because if you just focus on one and let the others go, then your school isn't going to be successful.
So kind of a harmony between.
Right, trying to find a balance.
Thank you for watching, and I would like to mention that this video is sponsored by my company. We help landlords to maximize their rental income. Normally, we take the property, say it's been rented for $3,000. We'll help landlord to make about $5,000 and charge about 10% from the profits. This is what we do. If you guys interested, if you're a landlord and looking for that company that could help you with getting more rent, just letting you guys know, I'm also a realtor in California. Any part of California you're looking for real estate, property for yourself, live with a family, or for investment, I'm your guy. Feel free to hit me up in the DM.
So you've been here, is your second year as principal, right?
Correct.
Was there like what could you share, which moment could you share that you felt most proud about the achievements yourself and the school? Was there a moment when you felt like,
Well, it's interesting. I really value community relationships. And when the staff and the students and the parents found out that I was going to be returning for a second year, they were very excited. And I felt this is my success, right? Because
we want you for third year?
right, exactly. And prior to me being here, there had been a lot of changes.
Right.
And I don't think that they're going to be making a change. I think I'll be able to stay here through my retirement, because I think they know they have found someone who understands what the school needs.
Right.
And who has the relationships to make sure that it can happen.
Yeah, actually, we were thinking about transferring Yusuf to assign to other school, but I was speaking to Alex yesterday, and I was like, if Mr. Murdoch is staying, we probably stay too. Like, it doesn't matter what we like here.
I appreciate that.
We appreciate that. Another question is, how do you assess and address the needs of underperforming students? Is there like some approach you take about
We have a number of systems in place to help with that. The primary system that we have is our school is part of what's called a professional learning community. And what that means is that our teachers meet in grade levels looking at student data to assess where the kids are in terms of their performance. And they meet every single week with that team. And through the data, it directs their instruction to figure out who needs a little bit of help to catch up, who is ahead and needs to be pushed further, and who's right on grade level. So that's the first and most practiced strategy. The second system that we have in place is something called our student study team. So if we have students who are falling behind and we can't find the magic ingredient to get them caught up, we submit their name and their data to the student study team, which involves our school psychologist, our school counselor, our speech therapist, our resource specialist teacher, myself, and then we have two other teachers themselves from the staff who sit on this team, and we discuss the students and we try to come up with a plan to help the student make progress. And we typically do it in 6-week cycles, and each student who comes before that team gets 2 6-week cycles for improvement. And if we don't see an improvement in those 6-week cycles, then we refer the students for special education testing to see if they have a learning disability or something that might be a little bit more limiter to their success.
Right on, right. How do you ensure that curriculum remains engaging and relevant for the students, especially considering, and I understand that this is elementary school, but many people started to use AI in the school system. What's your approach on this? What's your stance on this?
So when it comes to curriculum, the curriculum and education have a unique relationship, because the curriculum is really the textbooks, right, and the standards are really what we need to teach. Right. And the textbooks are created by companies who are trying to sell their books. And so they do a fairly decent job of including the standards and teaching the standards in their curriculum, but it's not always 100%. My teachers here have the autonomy to look at the curriculum and decide if it teaches the standards to the highest degree that they want in their classroom. And if it doesn't, then they have the freedom to replace it with something that might get the kids closer. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to do it all the time, but what it means is that there might be 25 pages of their curriculum that they use, and then they skip 2 or 3 pages because they have another resource they're going to use, and then they come back to it. And because we have several programs that don't use a set curriculum for the instruction of it, like we use something called Right from the Beginning and Beyond to teach writing. It's a system that doesn't come with a textbook. What it comes with is teaching strategies that the teachers use in the classroom, and then the teachers pick which of those strategies help to teach writing the best. And so our school on April 1st is actually going to have about 50 teachers from around Orange County come to see how we teach writing, because we do it differently than most, and we're really successful with it. Another category that we don't use a set curriculum for is called cognitively guided instruction, which is CGI, and it's how we teach math to our littlest kids. And it's very hands-on, there's a lot of manipulatives, and there's a lot of talking, where kids are working out their solutions and they're sharing their solutions with others so that they can kind of teach each other in addition to having the teacher teach them. And what it leads to is better communication skills and a better number sense for when they're solving problems later on. My son actually experienced CGI in kindergarten, first, second, and third here at Schroeder when he was little. He's 24 now. And by the time he was in third grade, he was doing multiple step multiplication problems in his head without having to write anything down, because he could just figure it out right away based on the CGI that he had been exposed to. I view curriculum, the actual textbooks and things, as important, but I don't hold my teachers accountable to use them at all times, because I know that they have great strategies and other reference materials that can bring the standards alive and keep kids engaged.
So more academic freedom.
Correct. Academic freedom, but knowing that they're going to be aiming high.
Everything is changing really fast nowadays, and there is more and more technology going inside of the classrooms in everyday life. Do you think it's appropriate to integrate those technologies in a classroom in elementary school, or is it not really?
I think it's absolutely appropriate. So our school district is called a one-to-one Chromebook district. And so every student on our campus has access to a Chromebook every day. What they're using those for is different based on the grade level and what the subject area is. But for the most part, when the students get to the upper grades, most of the writing that they're doing keyboarding style. They're not writing it out longhand. And they're turning it in using Google Classroom. Much of the technology development that they go through is based on the grade level that they're in. So obviously with our TK students and our kindergarten students, they're just learning the alphabet and they don't necessarily know how to use that. We have touch screen devices for them to use so that they can still interact with the technology. But as they get to first grade and second grade, they start developing their keyboarding skills to be able to do more of their other types of work on the Chromebook. It saves a lot of paper, and it also gets our kids more technologically fluent, which is important for later on, because a lot of the teaching that we do is to prepare students for a world that doesn't even exist yet. So the pace of the change in technology is such that if we don't get our kids technologically fluent now, they will already be behind when they get to middle school.
What would you say was your biggest challenge since you became a principal here, sir?
Oh, goodness. My biggest challenge is paperwork. I'm not a big fan of paperwork, but I have to tell you that coming back to Schroeder after having been away for 11 years, it was a bit like coming home. When I think about problems, I really don't think about what happens here as a problem, because I've enjoyed it so much. It really hasn't been a huge struggle for me. I've come home to my friends and family, and they are taking care of me.
Where do you see America and the generation that study here in 24 years from now? You said that we don't even know what kind of future is we're expecting.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you imagine where these kids would be in 20 years from now on?
Well,
see them.
so
Considering the fact that
right.
they were also here when their parents were studying here.
Right. So we are seeing a change in the students that come through our schools. But in addition to that, we're seeing a change in society, right? And so 20 years from now, it's going to, there are going to be things in our society that don't even exist today, jobs that we didn't know about. You had mentioned AI earlier, and my belief is that AI is going to become more and more prevalent in what we do. We're already using it to help us break down the standards that the teachers are using in the classroom. So they'll have AI give them a breakdown of all the skills that are in a standard so that they can start to develop lessons to address those skills. So the teachers are using it. And when I was the principal over at Weber before I came here, I actually used AI to help me write my principal letter where I described the school, but I made it a classroom assignment for the sixth graders there. I went online, I created mine using ChatGPT. I printed it out. I walked it to the sixth grade classrooms and I said to the sixth graders, this is what ChatGPT says about our school. What can you make better than that? Right. And so they took what I had done using AI and improved on it. So here's my feeling. My feeling is that AI is going to be something that we're going to be seeing. And we can either be prepared for it or we can be unprepared for it. And the more we get our kids ready now, I mean, we consider ourselves a college and career academy. Yes. So we want to expose our kids to what they could be doing later. It's why we have a parent career day where they come in and talk about their jobs to our kids to let them know what is out there. And it opens their eyes to possibility more than anything. And that's, when you think about 20 years from now, I think you and I could probably talk for hours about what the world might look like, and we probably still wouldn't get anywhere near it, right? Because we don't know.
Just an assumption.
Right, but I think my job is to prepare them for a future that we're not sure about, and they need basic skills that are well developed to get there. That's my goal.
The most question that was people, is going to get the people's attention. Obviously, the school went up in the rankings this year, which was a great news for everyone. I have two questions regarding this matter. Actually, three questions. My first question is, what do you think, what you guys did to go up in ranking? Second question is, do you think that the current ranking that we have on the websites like grade schools, etc., are they relevant? And the third question is, do you think that like there would be even higher rankings, or those rankings are not always necessarily relevant? Like, what's your stance on this position?
So to answer your first question, it's funny, I don't really even know what our ranking is because I haven't really looked at it.
Right.
And I don't know on what factors we improved. When it comes,
It was academic. It used to be 7, now it's 8.
right, and what that, I believe what that does is it compares your school, meaning Schroeder, right, to other schools with a similar demographic and what their performance looks like, right? Well, that 7 to that 8 is, it could be percentage points. It could be 1 or 2 in either direction to make that difference, right? Whatever happened with that was probably not something I did because I just got here last year, right? So when I think about that, I realize that I've never really even looked at those because I use most of the data that's important to me is the California dashboard. So on the state dashboard, it has our school performance ranked based on several categories: academics and attendance and suspension rate and those kinds of things. Those are the criteria by which we get judged by our superiors at the district office. They look at those numbers and they look at the color coding that happens on there, and that's how we get our report card, right? And so when I see improvement there, that's relevant to me. The grade school stuff is nice. It feels good to hear it, but it's not something that we can control specifically, because even if we just stayed the same, other schools,
kind of a black box because you don't really.
right, we don't know what,
Data,
we could stay the same exactly, and another school could go down or up, and it might change our ranking, and we just don't know what happened to get us there.
Right on. So many schools nowadays are practicing no grades policy, that kids go to school without grades. What do you think about that? What's your stance on this? Do you think that's the right thing to do, or the grades, it's better to have the grades to just have a comparable analysis of what's going on?
I was just having this discussion about grades with a couple of teachers at a conference we went to this last week. And in our conversation, one of the reasons why grades have hung on the way they are right now for so long is because when you and I went to school, it's what we had. And so that kind of change is hard to initiate, because if I came to you tomorrow and said, your son's not going to have grades anymore, you might say, why, right? And from my perspective, your son's performance on the standards is more important to me than a letter grade. Your son's in kindergarten now, I believe. His end of the year goal is going to be to read some sight words. It's going to be to know the alphabet backwards and forwards. It's to know the sounds that the letters make. It's going to be able to count to 100. So he's got these benchmarks that he has to reach, right? In my view, if he can reach all of his math benchmarks at 100%, to me that would tell you more about his performance than an A, a B, or a C, or a 1, a 2, or a 3, right? To be able to actually say, well, he knows all the things he needed to know for kindergarten, right? The great thing about our report cards right now is that they're standards-based report cards. I think that the fact that they have all the standards that are important listed on there, and you can kind of look to see how they're doing, is really valuable. But it isn't necessarily a great big picture for a child on the whole. Because if a teacher takes, let's say, an average of all the grades that they got during a year and gives that as the end of the year grade, a student could end up with a C at the end, but they could know every one of their standards at 100%. And to me, that's a dichotomy that can't really stand, because if you know everything that you were supposed to know at the end of the year, why don't you have an A?
Exactly.
And so that's the argument against grades. I totally understand why grades are happening. When my son was in college, I wanted to know how he was doing because I was paying for it. It was very important to know. However, if he knew all the things he needed to know, that would be important to me.
What are your short and long-term goals in Schroeder?
So my short-term goals at Schroeder are to improve our, we call it our PBIS program, which is our positive behavior interventions and systems, to help our kids with their behavior on campus and understanding what their role is around the campus. That's a big one for me. We are becoming an AVID demonstration type of a school. AVID doesn't have demonstration schools in elementary, but we are actually, AVID is Advancement via Individual Determination. And it's a program that teaches kids organization and writing skills and inquiry skills and high-level reading, with the intention of preparing them for middle school. And so my goal is to get our PBIS program firing and going great, and get our AVID off the ground in every grade level. We're in year 3 right now, and we're already doing a showcase for other folks to come see it. So to me, that's my short-term goals. My long-term goal is to get Schroeder to a place where there are systems running that self-check for gradual improvement year upon year, so that it doesn't matter who sits in this office. The teachers already have the systems in place, and they can make that kind of progress. And what I can tell you is that Schroeder has experienced a lot of change over the last 29 years in terms of who was the leader, and they have continually improved their scores year upon year. And that is a big reflection of the staff and the teachers, and not a big reflection of the principals, because they keep changing, right? And so, you know, anybody who brings their child here is going to be exposing their child to a strong staff with a big heart that works tirelessly every day to help them move forward.
The question that I wanted to ask, have you ever had a situation when you had to fire a teacher?
Hiring and firing teachers is a weird thing because a lot of it has to do with education code. And I've never actually had to go through the entire process of letting a teacher go who was a permanent teacher. Because permanent teachers have something called tenure. And tenure is a protection that
From the union?
it's a contractual piece, yes, but it is also, once a teacher has a certain number of years in a district, they move to a new level of protection. So they start as a temporary teacher, and that's year to year, where your contract ends when the kids walk out on the last day, to a probationary contract, which goes forward, assuming everything is okay, to a permanent contract, right? And I've never had to take a permanent teacher through the process of getting them out, but I have had to let temporary teachers go. That's always hard because sometimes you have to do that just because of your student numbers. You may not have enough kids to support having that extra teacher, and you have to say to them, you know, we loved having you this year and you did a great job, but I got to let you go because we don't have the students to justify it. But then the second one is the probationary teachers. And I have had a probationary teacher who I didn't think was performing at the level that I felt was
Didn't meet expectations, pretty much.
correct. They did not meet the expectations that I had as a principal. And so we gave them a year to improve, and we gave them all the tools necessary to do that. And when they were not able to meet those goals that we set for them, then at the end of the year, I sat down with the folks from the Human Resources Department, and we had that tough conversation with a person and said, you know, we're going to be terminating your contract, and we're sorry about that. But that's the period of time that you want to be able to have that happen, is during probation, because if you can't get it done, then it becomes much more complicated when they have tenure and they're permanent.
If you would be able to change something in the whole school system, what do you think would be the thing that you would have wanted to change?
You know, I wish that we didn't have to group kids by their age. I wish that we could. I wish we could group kids by their ability level and what they need. And I know folks might think that's a lot like middle school, because in middle school, you know, you do group kids by level. They have different math classes. They have different English classes.
The Soviets used to have it.
Yeah.
It didn't matter how old you are. Most of the time, the intellectual abilities would be the main
Right.
thing.
And to me, if we could get kids what they need at the level that they need it, rather than trying to fit them into a spot where they don't necessarily fit, to me that would be great. It's just not the reality we live in right now. Our system, but that's where we come back to the professional learning community I mentioned earlier, because in that we do actually level to get our kids what they need at the level they need it, even though we're kind of stuck with the grade levels that we have.
And the last question I ask everyone, channel sir, and I think that person with such a wide experience as yourself would, be able to answer this. This is kind of irrelevant to our interview, but I think everybody have very interesting answers to this question. What is the meaning of life for you?
Oh goodness, the meaning of life for me.
It's a very broad question. But...
Well, I'm not typically that deep a thinker, if I'm honest with you. But I have to say, to me, watching my son grow and become a responsible adult and seeing him be successful has brought meaning to my life that I didn't know I needed. And watching him get married and start his own family and that sort of thing has been... Not yet, but soon, I would think. But married and moving forward has been tremendously gratifying, and sharing my life with my wife, who she and I have been together for almost 40 years now. We started dating when we were in middle school. That to me is the meaning of life, is finding joy in your family.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, sir.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Game money's on the screen tonight. Secrets out in plain sight. Luxury homes at half the price. Making dreams oh so nice.